Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to a man. For this he was chained to a rock and tortured for eternity. Oppenheimer has exposed self-destructive tendencies in humans, no matter their intention. This stems from arrogance, ignorance, and pride. Prometheus was prideful. He could not bear to see his creation mistreated, so he acted in mischief, and for that he was punished. This is continually seen in the story of the nuclear bomb. Oppenheimer and many of the scientists were blind to the reality of what they were doing. Their ignorance of thinking creating a bomb of mass destruction would end all wars is naive. It suggests humans are prone to self-destructive behaviors because of their superiority complex demonstrated in the nuclear arms race, Oppenheimer's behaviors, Strauss's ego, and patriotism. The nuclear arms race for the hydrogen bomb has led to a constant fear amongst the masses, nuclear anxiety if you will. This propelled both nations into outdeveloping the others in nuclear weapons, further increasing the anxiety, a self-fulfilling paradox where it never stops. Neither country would stop and fear of the other would come out on top, but really it was the pride, the patriotism for their country being the one to essentially control all conflicts. Because who would dare oppose the country with the most nukes? They would have all the power of the gods. Neither side could give that up. Eventually, this race has exhausted the Soviets and contributed to the downfall of the Soviet Union. Their own desire to be the strongest ultimately destroyed them. This is an oversimplification of what happened, but for convenience sake, we won't go further. J. Robert Oppenheimer himself is also a victim to this. He is a man of great abilities, not only being the father of the atomic bomb, a great theoretical physicist, but also a linguist and dabbled in philosophy and politics. But both of this led to his downfall. His ignorance of thinking the bomb would end all wars is naive, hopeful thinking for sure, but unrealistic. Sure, they were in a race to finish the bomb before the Nazis did, but they ended up being very far from the bomb. Despite the surrender of Germany, they continued to develop the bomb not only because the scientists wanted to finish their work, but the government wanted the power the bomb gave in a military viewpoint. The naivete of Oppenheimer and the other scientists unleashed a nuclear arms race that only made more and more destructive weapons. Their wishful thinking, their ignorance to politics they don't understand, opened the world to world-ending weapons. Oppenheimer also further destroys his reputation due to his activities and his associations with communists. At first, he was denied the job due to his association with the Communist Party, but General Groves allowed him clearance because they both knew he was the man for the job. But after World War II, this was a very different story. With his adamant stance against the hydrogen bomb, along with the fear of a secret spy, he has made himself a target for Louis Strauss to discredit. The hearing for his security clearance exposed his many questionable activities, his affair with Jean Tadlock, a known communist, his desire to bring his brother, an ex-communist, as well as his wife, also an ex-communist, his donation to the Spanish Civil War through communist channels. His past choices has come to bite him. His affiliation with communist activities ultimately lost him security clearance and tarnished his credibility forever. This was all because he wanted his clearance back, despite knowing his past. He was once again naive to think it would play out in his favor. On to Mr. Strauss. Louis Strauss is a man that tarnished his reputation because of his actions as well. This all started from his ego, when he thought Oppenheimer made a comment that made fun of him. He has held that resentment against Oppenheimer and orchestrated a plan to destroy his legacy, accusing him of being a Soviet spy to stripping him of his security clearance with a fabricated report that suggests Oppenheimer of communist activities. His plan was successful. It ruined Oppenheimer's reputation, stripped him of his clearance, and allowed the hydrogen bomb to develop without Oppenheimer to oppose. But this all came falling down in a hearing for Strauss's position of Secretary of Commerce. When the truth was revealed about his actions to discredit Oppenheimer, he is left stunned. His self-importance, his ego, also ruined his own reputation. In a conversation between Oppenheimer and Einstein, Strauss's self-importance made him think they were talking about him. His self-importance made him think Oppenheimer's comment ridiculed him. This all ultimately just made him look silly, forever leaving a bad impression amongst the scientific community. Lastly, patriotism might just be the root of this problem. Society itself is inherently destructive. We go to war against each other to destroy and dominate the weaker. Even though we are all the same, we divide ourselves into countries, communities, race, religion, etc. And it is all to justify our actions in the domination of the other, the us against them, because otherwise we are destroying ourselves. So we found ways to separate ourselves from the other. It's why the Europeans bought African slaves, so there's an obvious separation between the other. It makes everything easier if we detach ourselves from our humanity, because then we don't feel the guilt of destroying what is essentially ourselves. Oppenheimer, the movie, has been a brilliant biopic and has perfectly showcased the emotions of each person during that time. It has done a great job at pointing out humanity's shortcomings, where Oppenheimer, Strauss, and both USA and the Soviets have allowed their pride to get the better of them. You can see through history how this is constantly repeated. For example, SARS, Russo-Japanese War, or even Japan's unsurrendering mindset. They allowed their pride to dictate their actions, and in the end, it never ends well. In conclusion, don't let your pride get the better of your decision making, keep a level head, and act with rational thoughts.